So I think I'd be remiss if I didn't give a little bit of context. Right now, Bitcoin's at all-time highs. Bitcoin's sitting around $130,000 per piece. The crypto market in general has a $4 trillion market cap. Trump just signed the Genius Act and U.S. stablecoin framework requiring one-to-one reserves and money audits and AML tracking. So it's only grown in recent years. And what I would say to that, I just take a pause, man. I've been investing since I was 14 years old, and I'm 34 now. So I've been doing this for 20 years, and I'm pretty consistently make decent money. And I've never seen something rise this fast with so little clarity. What I mean by that is there's no clean mission. There's no functional explanation of why it keeps going up. It's just vibes and volatility. And let's be honest, they go, oh, governments are starting to acknowledge it now. They just made these laws like around one-to-one reserves and money audits and AML tracking. Like, okay, just look at where Bitcoin was only a few years ago. Isn't that the exact opposite of what Bitcoin was supposed to be? It was supposed to be this big decentralized thing that operated outside of a system. And I mean, these are clear steps to put it right into the system. So now we're starting to get into a regulated, approved crypto state with reserve requirements. And somehow people think that's bullish for Bitcoin. The same people at 10 years ago would have told you that was the thing, that it being outside the market was the thing that gave it value. So it's just crazy, man. People flip and they flop and they see the number going up, and it feels very religious to me. But that's fine. I can look past that. Bitcoin used to have value because it was deregulated, and now it has a bunch of value because it's regulated. Makes perfect sense. So aside from that, what are the other examples that these people will typically just give me? They go, oh, well, the thing about it is, unlike US dollars where you can keep printing more, it's finite. There's only going to be 21 million Bitcoins. And to that, I would say, I know people who own like 1,000th of a Bitcoin or 100,000th. You could own 1 millionth or 100 millionth. So where there's only going to be 21 million Bitcoins, you can chop it up 100 zillion ways. And it's really hard for me to distinguish between, that and it not being, it's really hard for me to understand how that isn't infinite. But, maybe you know something about math that I don't know. So why don't you let me know in the comments how that's not infinite? Anyway. The next point, kind of the final one I always hear that maybe makes a little bit of sense, is they'll sit there and talk about the capabilities of blockchain technology. And listen, man, I'll give you that. I understand you got these secure transactions. Before there would have been like humans and a whole process required to have like a faulty process to accomplish transactions. And so the technology of blockchain is good, and I guess that's embedded in these cryptocurrencies, but why does that make it a currency? And why does that need to be this thing that operates outside the market? And the answer is it doesn't, man. You got big companies like JP Morgan designing their own blockchain. It's like Connexes or something it's called now. And it's not a cryptocurrency. It is blockchain technology. It is utilized by their company, and they charge fees on it in US greenbacks. So to be like, there's this like thought process out there that in order to utilize blockchain technology, it has to be done via a cryptocurrency. And it's just like, it's so not true. And you can see it in real time. It's out there in the market being utilized by big companies. And honestly, that's the way it should be. Because let's say I want to do some secure transaction to get money from one place to another or something like that. I can't call up Bitcoin if my transaction doesn't go through. I can call up someone at JP Morgan and go, hey man, what the hell? Where's my money? And it really looks to me like if you care about the consumers and you care about the people, like wouldn't you want to have a face with the thing executing the transaction? So I just don't buy the fact that, blockchain has to exist within a cryptocurrency. I think the reality of it is you'll have real companies having real use cases for it, and they'll just find a way to put it out as a billable service. And thanks to crypto for help pushing that technology forward, but like you don't need crypto for the technology to exist. And honestly, outside those three use cases, I haven't heard anything that even comes close to being like a real explainable reason why Bitcoin would have value. You will have people on YouTube videos, and they'll sit there and they'll pull charts up on a screen, and they'll look at like the trend and they'll go blah, 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 support levels. And like, dude, I'm just going to tell you now, if you're not super investment savvy, like those people can talk and say a bunch of fancy buzzwords that might sound like they know what they're talking about. But there's no one on this planet that can pull up just a chart and tell you what's going to happen with an asset's value based solely on a chart. It does not exist. And those people are snake oil salesmen or they're idiots. And you should not believe them. Will Bitcoin continue to exist in 10 years, in 50 years, in 100 years? I can't tell you for sure, and I don't know everything. And again, if you're making money, I'm happy for you. All I'm trying to do is like put some questions in your head that you should be asking before you put your money somewhere. I'll give you the example of Tulip Mania in 30 seconds. This happened in the 1630s in Holland. And there was a time where, for some reason, a bunch of people thought that the society thought that tulips had value, and there was like a secondary market for them. And at one point, tulips were selling for the equivalent of 10 years the average salary. So I don't know what the average salary is in the U.S. today. Maybe it's like $60,000. Like literally, a tulip would go for what the equivalent of $600,000 was today. And people were buying it, man. And it lasted for like a year or two. And then ultimately, the entire thing came crashing down, and people's entire fortunes were just, wiped off the face of the earth. And that sounds so crazy now because you're like, yeah, I wouldn't be tricked by a tulip. Like, that's so stupid. But, take yourself and put yourself in the historical context, and all your neighbors are making money, and everyone's making money, and probably whatever the media of the day was is sitting there saying, like, this is a good investment. And then really try to compare it to yourself today. And you're like, oh, well, a bunch of guys in suits on TV said it's good. And so then I went on my phone and I clicked a couple buttons and I moved my money into this thing. Like, how is that not any more ridiculous than buying tulips? And again, I'm not saying it will come crashing down, but like, if you can't tell me the difference, if you can't tell me what makes it difference, then what makes you so confident? And again, if the answer is, well, everyone says it. I mean, dude, look at a cult. Go and watch a cult and explain to me how that's a different line of thinking, because I can't see it that way. So I guess like the message I'm really trying to drive home here is not like sell all your Bitcoin, it's completely worthless, but like if you do own it, you should know why you own it, because it's your wealth. And dude, like, you just because society's played this game for 10 or 15 years doesn't mean it's going to last forever. And I was talking this weekend to a very good a relative I'm pretty close with, and he's done very, very well for himself. He's like 40 years old, and he's established more wealth in his 40 years of life than most people will do in their entire life. And he holds 100% of his wealth in Bitcoin. And for 12 years, him and I have always gone back and forth and like differences we have on this. And like, I have to acknowledge, for the last 12 years, he's probably made more money than I would have in the S&P 500. So it's like, you got to acknowledge that up front. But if I'm sitting there and I've got a family and I've got a house and I've got bills to pay and I've got millions of dollars in this thing, and he can't fully explain to me like why it has value. And this is an intelligent guy. This is a guy I respect. So it's not like this isn't a dig at him at all. It's just like the acknowledgement, like, dude, why are you putting so much faith in this thing that you can't really explain? And if it were me, what I try to urge him, like people in that position to do, look, you clearly made a fair amount of money in Bitcoin, and he made his money like in a business as well. So it's not just Bitcoin, but his returns have been boosted by Bitcoin. If you've got $2 million, why don't you cut it three ways? Or let's say $2.1 million. If I had $2.1 million, I would put $700,000 into real estate. I would put $700,000 in the stock market, and I would keep $700,000 in Bitcoin. I wouldn't keep money in Bitcoin. But if you're somebody who made money in Bitcoin, you believe in it. Like, I'm not saying don't have some of your money in it, but please, dude, diversify a little bit. I love the stock market. I pray to it like it's my God. So, like, listen, glass house is here. But I do not keep all my money in the stock market, because what if the stock market crashed tomorrow? I would be so upset with myself if I spent my entire life building this wealth and I had zero diversification. I just put it all in one place, and then all of a sudden, overnight, something I worked for my entire life to build is taken off the board. And I only use the example of the person in my family here because he is very smart, he's very intelligent, he's somewhat investment savvy, and that's where like I find it weird that he won't diversify outside of it. And that's where, to me, it just really does start to look very similar to cult-like behavior. So if you're someone who believes in Bitcoin, invest in Bitcoin, dude, I'm not knocking you. There's things I don't know. I do not know everything, and I could be completely wrong about it. If you have a real tangible explanation of why Bitcoin has value, why you think it's going to reach a certain price by a certain date, let me know in the comments, man. If I'm wrong, if you say it in a way that I understand, I'll gladly acknowledge it. But I've been searching, I've been begging very smart friends of mine, and nobody's broken it down in a way that makes sense to me. And for that reason, I am not a holder of Bitcoin. And I would just caution people before putting more money than they have to lose into the space. This is all just food for thought. I hope this was thought-provoking and you guys got something out of it. I'd love to hear from you in the comments. And if there's any specific topics that I dove into this video that you want me to go deeper into, let me know in the comments and I'll make a follow-up video on it. But until then, man, I hope you guys all have a great day. I hope you all get super rich, and I hope you get what you want out of life. Peace.